What's a playback world? It's a Friday night. Will I get much attention from the other live streams? We'll see. I know there's many live streams that happen on the weekend, so I'll be glad to get whatever game out to whatever folks to come in, regardless. Regardless, I like that. Yeah, I do like that. I do like that. Swap that around. How about what does this look like? It's too small. Side by side. I do like that. Kind of gives it a different something. Kind of gives it a different look. Still kind of got a wider view on me, while at the same time give it a nice little clean background. I might use this sometimes just to switch it up. You know what? Let me pull up the case. So we got that up. Let's pull up the case. So today we're talking about Dred Scott. Dred Scott. Let's pull up the case. Easy to find. I don't know why people ain't finding it and reading it. The Dred Scott plaintiff case. We'll leave that up for a moment. So that way people as they come in, they know it's official. We're just getting started. Not a lot of people in here. Hardly at all. But I'm gonna give them a moment for people to make their appearance and all that fun stuff, man. But I hope everybody's having a good Friday. This is gonna be my official Dred Scott video. I want to say I know I've done a Dred Scott video before, but I believe I didn't do it. What up, crew? I know I done a Dred Scott video before. I believe I didn't do it. Um, I think I did it in front of like my iPad. I didn't do it like an official video. So this is gonna be that official video for the Dred Scott. Sometimes I'm gonna do this look. Sometimes I'm gonna do this look. But hey, little background. You know what I'm saying? Be shown here and there or whatever. I'm trying to switch it up for the fam. Trying to switch it up for the visuals. uh, how y'all doing tonight, man? We're gonna dive deep into the Dred Scott all in one go, like source after source after source. We're gonna look at what people normally be saying about the case because I'm not mad that people have the ideas that they have about the Dred Scott case because I know it's the information's came from a lot of the official sources like C-SPAN or the news or whatever. Everybody's saying the wrong thing. So I'm not mad, but if for those people that don't want to be not corrected, but those people that just don't want to listen to alternative ideas via sources, just you got to wonder about that, But today we're gonna look at all these things on the Dred Scott case. So we got people coming up in here. It's starting to get a little something. It's Friday, so there's a whole lot of live streams jumping off right now. So I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it, man. If it's just us, we gonna get the game between us. So yeah, let's go. Let's get started. Right? I'm a double back likely when people start coming up in here. But we're gonna be talking about the Dred Scott case. Okay. Dred Scott. Now it's not hard to find the Dred Scott case. Just go to the National Archive records. Type in Dred Scott. It's the first thing that pulls up. Okay. And this is the actual case. It's got handwritten notes on the bitch. So it's about as official as it can get on what the case is. This is the transcript of the record of really like almost like I want to say this is this like what the court reporter probably typed up. Likely so. Well, not type, wrote up. But we're gonna be taking a look into some of these. They got transcriptions. Let me do the transcription. So right here you got the transcription, which we're gonna be going into that. So that's the right one. That's the first one, really. Uh Dred Scott versus John A. Sanford. Now notice it's Dred Scott suing Mr. Sanford. People were saying that he was suing him for his freedom. But that's not what it says in here. You would think, okay, if somebody was suing somebody for freedom, shouldn't that be the first thing mentioned when he in the plea right here when he's like, hey, his declaration, Dred Scott, we're gonna read it. But if I'm suing for freedom, wouldn't that be the first thing I say? Yeah, man, I've been a slave for X amount of time, and I'm supposed to be free because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm not free. I need to sue this nigga. Like, okay, that's what I would think you would see in the plea. Like, I guess I don't know what else. Show whatever proof that shows you was free. Oh, I got my papers from this, or I don't know, whatever the case may be. But that's not the case. When I go to read it, like literally, it blew my mind away. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was like, "Where's this part that he talks about being a slave?" Now we'll get to John A. Sanford's plea, but now we better get started. Okay, I had to roll one up so I can give him a little break in between. But okay, so in my mind, I'm trying to think, where do I want to start? Do I want to start with the case, or do I want to start with what people were saying about the case? You know what? I'm gonna start off with a slight bit of the case. Then we're gonna double back to what the people are saying about the case, and then we're gonna go through a little bit more of the case. Okay. Let me put this like this so your boy is a little bit more upstage in front, like I should, right? Okay. So now let's take a look at some things in the newspapers that I found about the Dred Scott case specifically. And let's see what people were saying about said case. Now, here's one. We'll read through it. It says the slavery case now pending before the Supreme Court attracts more attention for the moment than anything in Congress. Now, one thing I want you to notice is this thing is attracting a lot of attention about. Now, the case is not about slavery, but that's what they're trying to make it. What's up, I am my ancestors? The case is not about. What's up, Dominique? Appreciate the heart, me. Appreciate the gift. How you doing tonight? What's up, Catnap man? Appreciate the heart, me. How you boss? How you doing tonight, boss man? How's everybody doing? So we're going in about the Dred Scott. This is gonna be my official Dred Scott video. Um. So yeah, we're starting off talking about this. They say, hey, this slavery case pending is attracting a lot of attention, and you gotta wonder, like, why is it attracting so much attention? Okay, that's what I was wondering, but I kept reading. It says attracted so much attention. The case of Dred Scott versus Sanford, the case referred to, it is argued at the late term of the Supreme Court, and the decision was deferred, and the case ordered to be re-argued at the term. The case was now take a look at this. The case, what the hell is that? How the hell did a ruler get on here? Oh, I must have hit that. Oh, okay. Um, I didn't know you can do that. Okay. So the case was generally considered at the late term as a made up case. So people can see that. It was considered to be a made up case. And what was it say after this? And made up by politicians with a view to obtain a decision on a prominent political questions. So I found this pretty early when I first started doing my research on Dred Scott in the newspapers. I didn't. What's up, Pistol Pen? How you doing tonight? Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what to think when I first found it. I was like, "What do you mean the case was made up, Dred Scott case?" But we're gonna keep going. Was the case made up? Did they fake a case? It could. I think so. When they say they made up a case, I believe that there's the Dred Scott case that I'm gonna read to you, where Dred Scott really did sue Sanford for some money for having him locked up for 6 hours, which was not what he put in a slave. He took him and his wife, and he basically tried to kidnap him, is what it was. But I think what they're saying is this slavery part that they're adding to it is made up, the made up case. But we're gonna continue. But that's that right there to say that it was made up by politicians, and this ain't gonna be the first time. What up, Jackson? How you doing? This ain't gonna be the first time. How you doing tonight, Jackson? This ain't gonna be the first time that we're gonna see that it was made up. So let's go to another newspaper. Let's see. Now this one is just really talking about the case. I ain't gonna read through the whole thing, but it's really going into this African thing. It says like right here. Hold up. Whoops. African. That an African was incapable of being a citizen. So this is somebody else. After the judgment of two minor cases, the argument was resumed in the case of Dred Scott versus Sanford H.S. Geyer, for the claimant took the broad ground that an African was incapable of being made a citizen. So notice it said African, not an Indian, not a so-called black. It was specifically African. But people would change that up in the newspapers. But on the actual Supreme, I mean the decision by the judge, it said African was not a citizen, not a black person or a Negro. Okay, so it says so it has been held by the late courts number of cases adopting the Constitution. Every state except one slaveholder state had held that he could not. So long story short, they kept talking about this African slave. They said the African slave trade, but in this particular situation, they're talking about it in the slaves being traded in between states. That I found kind of interesting. I'll read it to you. It says the Convention for the Adoption of the Constitution left open the African slave trade for 20 years. To his mind, it was not the intention of the farmers or the framers of the instrument to make an importation. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, it is. No, this one ain't for that one. I'm sorry. To make an importation of material for citizenship. So this is just somebody else arguing about it, but still somebody else said the case was made up. So this is when I was like, okay, I got to keep looking because we got two people around the same time frame kind of saying different things. So you got this guy over here 1856 saying stuff like the case was made up. It was just some political thing just to put out there or whatever. You got this dude going in and talking about African slave trades. Okay, I was like, well, let's keep going. Okay. I found another thing down here. Let me see what this says. What I found. He denied that there had been any judicial decision allowing them to go beyond this. The remarkable fact that every attempt to legislate on slavery was not under the Constitution, but under the pretense to compact. So the reason why I had this is like, hey, the remarkable fact was that every attempt to legislate on slavery was not under the Constitution. So the main thing I want y'all to take away from this is that why'd I have to do that? They were trying to regulate. They were pining at the, to like come up with some legislation about this slavery, even though slavery's been going on compared right for the longest, right? For some reason, they needed legislation. Remember, so that's why I showed the one before too that talked about the case now pending was attracting all this attention, and I'm like, why would a case about even a man suing for his freedom, let's just say he was suing for his freedom, why the hell would it be attracting so much attention? My bad, let me pull up my damn chat for the YouTube. Okay, there we go. So why would it be attracting so much attention? So we're gonna get to that because this is a very pivotal time in history uh, for this African language shit. All right, so let's go to the next thing. Now, this is one that I had saved, and it says, "Hey," it says a bunch, but it says, "Hey, the court by Tawny, Chief Justice, decided that the case was not held within jurisdiction of the court as the plaintiff was not a citizen and had no right to sue in federal court." So, what does that mean? The reason why I was showing this is people will say that Dred Scott lost the case because they said that a white man has no, or black man has no rights that the white man is bound to respect. And I'm going to show some video clips here in a second of what people have said about the case. We're going to go through a couple of these newspapers first. We're going to look at some videos, then we're going to read the case because that's going to help show you, like, you know, just how stupid it is in a sense, because it's like, and where do you find the truth, and how is it, because it's like, okay, what is the truth really? You gonna find it in the case. Where the hell else you gonna look? How come people ain't looking at the case? Or they just bullshitting. So but right here, this one, instead of saying, hey, it's not, he lost it because they said that he's a slave and slaves can't sue, because that's the other thing they'll say. He lost it because he said he was a slave and slaves can't sue. But no, he lost it because according to Tawny, which was wrong and lied, he said that he was an African slave and he literally says his ancestors came from Africa, and said that a person whose ancestors were from Africa were not considered citizens of the United States. And I'm not mad at that, to be honest. But so, but that's not what it is. Like, this is, I mean, so really what it is, my bad, this is what it is. What it is they took the thing that said that he was an African slave, like what I just said. I'm sorry, I did say that he was an African slave, even though he wasn't. And they said, because you're an African, you can't sue. We have no jurisdiction. You can't sue this man for anything. Okay. Now, we're gonna find later how much lying they do, because they'll say that after this whole court decision went through, that he still was set free. There's like, yeah, he was set free after the court decision, but then he died like a year later. And I sat there and I was like, you just told me that they battled this in court for years. You said that the person battled with Dred Scott for years, and then all of a sudden, when he finally gets to the end, he just lets him go. Why would you battle him for years if that's the case? That don't even make sense. But we'll get to the bullshit. We'll get to the bullshit. So okay, let's go to another one. This one just pretty much the same thing, talking about the Dred Scott case. Was talking about he's not a citizen. Now I do want to show you this part. I forgot about this part. So yeah, so now this is somebody talking about it around the same time frame, 1857. And notice what he says here. I had to look this word up. It says, hey, in a strict legal sense, perhaps all these questions were not properly before the court for adjudication, and all accept the decision that the court had no jurisdiction over the case of Dred Scott against Sanford, because Dred Scott was not a citizen of the United States. He said, so basically, all this shit these people be talking about this whole Dred Scott case, what they're saying about it is may be considered as mere dicta and not strictly decision of the court. I had to go look up what is dicta. Some of y'all might already know. What's up, Tabitha? Appreciate the what's up, Alicia Faye? Appreciate the heart. Much appreciation. How y'all doing tonight? Said those keywords Tiny said. Yeah, 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 right. And you have to pay attention to the wording specifically because when you listen to people talk about it on TV and everything else, they'll say, "Yeah, a black man is not a citizen." The other person be like, "Yeah, Negroes are not citizens," is what he said. The other person be like, "Yeah, slaves are not citizens." I said, "No, nigga." He said Africans are not citizens. Okay, why are y'all playing games by switching it up? Because that makes you think it's about something different, right? But when he said it was mere dicta, when you looked up dicta, it pulls up that it means this term. And I had to Google it to make sure I was right. But when you Google dicta, it means obiter dictum, statement in passing, a judge's expression of opinion, not regarded as binding or decisive. Okay. Something said incidentally. So let's go back to what they're saying here. They say, hey, the fact that y'all trying to say that Dred Scott is not a citizen of the United States is pretty much just your opinion. Okay. And it is not strictly a deal with the court. As I said, my bad. It's not strictly a decision of the court. So that's somebody else saying, hey man, y'all bullshitting. Okay. Just some court opinions. This ain't no real legal case that y'all talking about. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, this is my favorite one. Okay. We're gonna get to this one here. Appreciate that cat name, man. What's happening? What you say, Tabitha? She said Scott never called himself African. It was out it was out on him by Tiny. Yeah, yeah. And Oh, it was put on him by Tiny, yes, and by Sanford. So in Sanford's plea against Tiny, so Dred Scott sued Mr. Sanford, and he was suing him, and so all Mr. for $3,000. All Mr. Sanford, well, really more than that, but all Mr. Sanford could say in defense was he was my African slave, and that was and Tony was like, okay, we're gonna go with this. Let's run with this. You said what? He was an African slave? Yeah, yeah, we can make that work. In a sense, that's really kind of what happened. Um, and so let's look at this. Now, this is from, as you can see, I already got it marked all the way to hell up. So I ain't gonna do too much marking, but I'll get us to the points. So this is from Justice McLean, okay? Associate Justice McLean. This is from a justice at the time 1857, right? During that same year. Wouldn't his opinion, or not opinion, would his words on the case be very, very important? I'd say opinion still, but his wording on the facts of what happened. He says Mr. McLean expressed his views on the case of Dred Scott versus the subject. He proceeded to say that the plea as to the jurisdiction is radically defective. He says it has never been held necessary that the Constitution, uh, that to constitute a citizen, a man should have the qualifications of an elector. Now, we had to go look up what is an elector. I actually had looked that up before right here. So they're saying, hey, it doesn't mean that just because you don't have the qualifications of an elector doesn't mean you're not a citizen. So I don't know why y'all saying Dred Scott is not a citizen, but what is an elector? Well, according to a law dictionary around the same time. See, that's how dope I am. I'm gonna find some shit around the same time, okay, to make it work for you, right? Because why would they know what the hell somebody put on a def in a dictionary in 1955, back in 1950 1857? But elector meant one who has the right to make choice of public officers, one who has the right to vote. Now, you may think that that's you and everybody else, right? But it's really your electoral college. They're the electors, right? Electoral college. You are the citizen, but technically you are a different citizen because I had also had looked up what citizen man. Let me see if I put it here. I don't think I put it over here. We ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole. We ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole. So let's go back here. So we got the Chief Justice here saying all this. Let's go back. Let me give him a little whatever. See if I can erase that. Well, whatever. All right. So in that blue area right here, it says the most general definition of a citizen is a free man. That's why I went to go look up what a citizen is and what an elector is. But we ain't gonna go into that rabbit hole. The plea does not show Dred Scott to be a slave. Simple as that. You got associate justice telling you right there in the same time the plea does not show him to be a slave. The plea that Dred Scott is pleading. Now maybe the defense is trying to bullshit and say that he was a slave, but that ain't what Dred Scott said. And they said that they was going off of Dred Scott words. They said Dred Scott said he was an African slave. We'll look at that. Dred Scott said he had never said that. He never said. So how you gonna say he said that? But okay, it says it does not follow that a man in that green area. It does not follow that a man is not free whose ancestors were slaves. Just basically saying, hey, just because your folks was a slave, if you were, even if he was, and his even if his ancestors were, doesn't mean he's not a citizen. Now, an African is different. A slave is not. Uh, slave, as we've been saying now, slave don't mean African, right? So now it says in the yellow, it would have said that colored citizens are not agreeable members of society, but this is more a matter of taste than law. Saying, hey, they don't like y'all niggas, but that don't mean nothing to the law. Okay. Several states have admitted such persons to the right of suffrage and recognized them as citizens. And when we go under here, it says, and this has been done under, man, my eyes are burning. This has been done under the slaves as well as in the free states. On the subject of citizenship, we have not been very fastidious. Under the treaty with Mexico, we have made citizens of all grades and combinations of colors. The same has been done with the cases of Louisiana and Florida. No one ever doubted, nor a court held that the inhabitants did not become citizens under the treaties. They became citizens without being naturalized. So if they're talking about Louisiana and Florida, Louisianians and Floridians, OCO, what's up, Nikki? And they're talking about them becoming citizens under treaties without being naturalized, you got to be talking about Indians. Because who else did they have treaties with? I don't know anybody else they got treaties with like that. You know what I mean? In the Florida and Louisiana area. So that's from a associate justice at that time. Okay. Now we're gonna look at what some of the words that was said by Justice Tani in this case. This is from the archives.gov. So you can see everything's pretty much been a newspaper or official source. Y'all know how I roll around here. It says I'm a tear their ass up with their own official sources. A free Negro of the African race. Notice it said that a need. Now I want you to notice this. It says a free Negro of the African race. It does say the word Negro in there, but when you look up Negro, there's many cases where it says the word Negro is a bunch of races. You don't get that whole it's an African thing until later, 1850, around the same time, they start switching it up. all this African shit starts happening around this time. A lot of heavy language. But it says a free Negro who's of the African race, whose ancestors. Because I would say I'm a Negro from the American race, right? The American copper colored race. That's what I would say. I'm not a Negro African race, right? Whose ancestors were brought to this country and sold as slaves is not a citizen within the meaning of the Constitution of the United States. So he says it's the wording. As we know, the law is all about the wording. If your African was a ancestor was sold as a slave, so when people say slaves can't sue, that's not what they said here. Just because slave is in the sentence doesn't mean they're saying slaves can't sue or are not citizens. Just because Negro is in there doesn't mean that's what it, you know what I'm saying? It's a Negro of Africa. Okay. And that's not what I'm not. That's not what I am. All right. We're numbered among his people, lawfully appointed. Let's see down here. A state passed a law since the adoption of the Constitution may put a foreigner or any description of persons upon a footing with its own citizens as the rights and privileges enjoyed by them in the dominion of the laws, but that will not make him a citizen of the United States nor entitle him to the courts or whatever. So that either way, that's still just him saying that you could be a citizen of a state doesn't mean that you end up being a citizen of the United States just because a state might make you that. Now let's look at a few more of these and then we're going to go into some video clips of what people were saying about the but now this one pretty simple right here is like let them make up the case of like the Dred Scott case was made up. Again, we've seen it now at least in 3 times that they said it was made up. And then I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. I was like, maybe they mean made up, like drawn up the case, even though one was pretty blatant about it being made up. But we're gonna get to one. I want to get to one here. Watch. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here's one right here. Okay, listen to this one. Now you let me know what you think. Looked at the light of today, it would seem as if the famous Dred Scott case decision, I'm sorry, was deliberately made up. Now, when you put the word deliberately in front of made up, there's no mistaking what you mean. Now there's no mistaking what the hell they mean. So they made up the case. At least they're making up the part about him being a slave and certain this and that and whatever, but because it said, but notice this, I'm gonna keep reading. It says it was made up by the pro-slavery partisans in order to obtain the decisive expression of the Supreme Court in favor of their doctrines and designs. Okay. It certainly was not a case which any lawyer today would be anxious to take into the Supreme Court of the United States, owing to the shadowiness of the rights involved. The following was the agreed upon statement of facts on which the case was presented in court. One blah 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 blah. So um you got some pro-slavery partisans, according to this person, deliberately making up cases that it just seems totally absurd to these folks. Now I got that again because I told y'all I was like, why are y'all trying to make up? Why are y'all trying so hard to get something legislated on this motherfucking slave case? Like, for what reason? And then eventually it hit me. Let me see what I got next. Eventually it hit me. You need a case before you do things in the future, right? This is the case that sets precedent. This case is setting precedent that an African is not a citizen. Okay. That's basically what they're doing with this. And that's basically what they were trying to do. Okay. And they're like, we need somebody to rule on these slavery cases. When you gonna do it? Y'all need to hurry up with this case. And then they lying about it. Well, we need somebody to rule on something. Get somebody in there. Now let's read this. Let's read this and see who they got up in there. Okay. The Dred Scott decision. Now I already got it marked, but we're gonna just go in here with this. It says the Supreme Court, we're starting here at the top. The Supreme Court of the United States had under the general jurist, had under that great jurist, John Marshall. I went to that high school, won a high place in the esteem of the people of the country, and all Americans were disposed to accept his decision as the final word upon its subjects. So basically, with this part, it's basically saying, hey, at one point in time, people love the Supreme Court. Okay, and they fuck with their decision, they care about their decisions. You come down here in the blue part, it says during the decade before the war, however, the Supreme Court had deteriorated greatly in character and legal attainments of its members. When they say it deteriorated in legal attainment of its members, that means that there's members who did not go through legal schools to learn law. Their legal attainments, they're trying to obtain a legal degree. They didn't do it. They ain't got nothing. All right. So they don't know law. How you gonna go and be a Supreme Court justice where you have to know all the law and you don't know any law? Okay. It says there was not a man on the court who was held in high esteem as a lawyer or a jurist. Those are people who study law. And nearly, if not all, of the members were politicians whom Jackson appointed, who had appointed in reward for partisan subserviency. They were politicians rather than lawyers, and so regarded by the legal fraternity. So basically, this easily is saying, it said fraudulent. Exactly. Exactly. And they spelled it straight out. They saying, hey, this man just basically threw some niggas in. He just threw them in there as some politicians in the court. They don't know nothing. So what do you think they gonna do? You think they gonna sit up all night and try to study the next case that comes in their court? Okay, I'm in court now. I'm a judge now, so I got to take this seriously, guys. So I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna study this new case and make sure I study all the laws that I can, so I get the right. Hell no, Mr. Jackson, president. What do you want me to do in this situation? I want you to say them African niggas ain't supposed to be here. All right, them African niggas ain't supposed to be here. That's basically. He's just a lackey. Okay. This last part is green. At their head was Justice Taney of Maryland, who had received his appointment from Jackson as a reward for removing the deposits after Jackson's secretary, the treasurer, had refused to do so and resigned. I really want to know what the hell removing the deposits mean, because apparently the other treasurer didn't want to do it, and I'm pretty sure it has some with getting some money in your hands. But I haven't looked into that. But here you can see that Justice Taney, not only was he one of the ones that was appointed that don't know shit about the law, but on top of that, he was already a corrupt individual. So that's going to help to tell the story as we go a little bit further. Yeah, that's just saying Chief Justice talking about the citizen of elector or whatever. That's fine. We looked at the elector. We now let's read this real quick. It says, "Hey, the queerest part about the decision was that after the deciding that Dred Scott had no standing in the court and therefore the court had no jurisdiction in the case, the court proceeded to take the and to make extreme jurisdiction and go miles afield beyond the limit of the case before it. Um, to me, and then it kind of just kind of goes on from there. It kind of switches up. I think for me that just shows goes to show how corrupt again the court system was. They were trying to go too far with this jurisdiction thing, blah blah blah. Let me go to the next thing. This was a letter that I found, and it was in this newspaper article, and this says, "Hey, this is the facsimile, which means like an exact copy of one of the papers in the Dred Scott case, showing that Scott made his X mark." Notice they say that because yeah, that's not his signature. They be playing games with these goddamn X marks. Okay, they be playing games. You know that nigga wasn't there, and when you read through it, it ain't really much. I ain't finna get off into it. It basically somewhat talking about the case, but and then I can't remember where I read it, but Justice Tani was into this one guy. I wish I had where I read that. God damn it. Hold on. The Prognathus Race Archive. So there was this book here, but you also find it. Mm, Let me just double check to make sure I don't have this man's name saved. Cartwright, Samuel Cartwright. Um, I forgot where I read it, but okay, so we'll just go from there. So this is the Dred Scott decision in a book. The opinion of Justice Taney with an introduction by Dr. Whatever, whatever. Also, an appendix containing the essay on the natural history of the prognathous race of mankind, originally written for the New York Daybook at blah, 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 of New Orleans, published at the office, whatever. But basically, I found this, but I remember finding something that said that Judge Tani was really into this dude, Mr. Cartwright. I may have to go try to look in the newspapers for that. So when I looked it up, I found this book right here. The Prognathous. Well, it said that on the front, but I went and actually found the whole book, the Prognathous Race. Negro. Now, if you look up what the hell does prognathous mean, says it right here. Having a projecting lower jaw and chin. So they're talking shit basically about you, okay? The prognathous race and wrote a whole book. And then you have to ask, why would this prognathous race book? Let's read a couple passages from the prognathous race. Let me see. Caesar's the fourth generation. Now look at this. Let me give him a little whatever. So it says, in that case, the offspring of a tetrumquid, whatever that is, I had to look that up, unlike either father or mother, and incapable of perpetuating its existence beyond a few generations. Dr. Day of the Winnebago Agency. Now, what's the Winnebago Agency? They don't tell you here, but Winnebago are Winnebago Indians. An agent is an Indian agent. A Winnebago agency is a place where the Indian agents are at the agency, the Winnebago agency. So yeah, that ain't a good person either. But the Winnebago agency avers that the offspring of the Indians and Negro, notice how they covered that up. Notice how they covered that up. The offspring of the and Negro. Can y'all see it up in there? You can see it up in there. Notice somebody scratched that out. Let's read it though. That the offspring of the Indian and Negro has so little vitality that it ceases to exist after the fourth generation. Here you got a white man writing a book saying that your offspring is so weak that after the fourth generation, you don't even it ain't even around no more. If you don't get your non baby producing ass the fuck up out of here, it says the Mexicans, a mixture of the Indians, Negro, and whites. And notice that's what they try to do with us. So are we? Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I said I was gonna stay off their necks, and I'm off their necks. But does that make FBAs Mexicans? Hold on now. They said the Mexicans are a mixture of the Indians, the Negroes, according to them, Africans, and the Europeans. Does that make FBA Mexicans? Well, they better stop talking shit to their brothers. I'm gonna get off of them, but I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Hey, that is kind of what they did. They had an ethno just like we had an ethno amalgamation. They say they're amalgamated. Oh God. Oh, don't get me started, man. And yeah, they look and think about that. Now, a Mexican looks like he's amalgamated in the face. You look at a Mexican, you be like, yeah, yeah, that's all kind of things going up in there, man. But you look at us, and these niggas is accepting that. Yeah, yeah, I got the same thing too. The Mexican said he got the same shit. How did somebody shake y'all up differently when they when they put the three in there together in the motherfucking hat, nigga? They shake that bitch up the wrong way because your hair look different, your skin tone different. I'm just phenotype different. Okay, F no man. F no man. Okay. I just read it and I'm just making the correlations. Oh God, dude. Who shook them up, man? Come on. Okay. It says, and they say that they're dying out. The hybrid of the mixtures, blah, blah, blah. See, if I was to bring this up on their panel, they'd be mad at the fuck. Who brought you bring up the 1857 racist talking points? Okay. You said you had Indian and Negro and white in you. I didn't say it, nigga. And so did the Mexicans. Nigga, they had the caste system before you. How you gonna take it from them? How you gonna take the caste system from them niggas? They had it first. Y'all niggas be bullshit, dude. FBA, man, y'all tethering now. Mexicans gonna call y'all tethers here in a minute, nigga. I'm about to give them the ammo to. I'm about to fuck with. I'm about to go get the Mexicans the ammo to fuck with y'all, nigga, on the live streams. Be over there in the Mexican live stream. Hey guys, I don't have any problems with you guys. I understand you think you're indigenous. I'm not here to quarrel about those things, but you know you guys say you're mestizos, you know what I'm saying? You got a little white, you know what I'm saying, a little black, a little Zambo, a little mestizo, chino thing going. Well, FBA said the same thing. They said they doing the same shit y'all doing. They said they tethering on to your shit. They said they the new Mexicans, foundational Mexican Americans. Yeah, yeah. They said they gonna add that in there. Yeah, yeah. You might want to go to their live stream. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, let me get off. All right. So now let me show y'all something else up in the book. Just to drive home the point that this book is nothing good, right? Timid. No, that's talking about the Hindus. Hold up. This is where they're talking about like Negroes basically have like some superpower of not getting diseases. He says so seldom, so seldom it attacks individuals. So seldom does it attack individuals of that race. They're talking about something going on in New Orleans. A number of the prognathous race died. Notice it keep calling us that the prognathous race, because that's what they try to do. Always trying to come up with some new term for you. A number of the prognathous race died in the epidemic of New Orleans in 1853, more from panic, it is believed, than from the yellow fever. It's yellow fever they're talking about. Yellow fever of that year. Experience and observation prove that panic is kept apt to kill a Negro. So basically, they just said, "Look at this, man. Hold on." These niggas write this shit in a real scholarly fashion. Experience and observation prove that panic is very apt to kill a Negro. Nigga go, woo! These niggas is stupid, man. Are you serious? Have you ever seen a nigga die from being alarmed? I've seen a nigga run. I've seen a nigga grab his gun. I've seen a nigga do a few things. I've seen a nigga turn around and slap a nigga. You come around the wrong nigga too quick, too ninja style. But panic is apt to kill a Negro, but it's questionable whether the yellow fever per se has that power. So yeah, you won't be killed by the yellow fever, but if you get a little bit too worried, go bump in the night, you might fall over and pass out and be done. FBI confused. You can't be an amalgamation and from a single lineage. It's a contradiction. That's real. That's real. You won't never get them to believe it, and neither will I. I'm not going on none of them panels no more. An old person has had a heart attack from fright. No, yeah, maybe, yeah, old folks, but you don't, yeah, and they talking about all old folks. Now, a person who is YT looks old around 45, 35, really. 30, I should say 35. They damn near look like Skeletor at 35. And so it might happen to them, yeah, for us, we're gonna have to get in our 80s and have like diabetes and high blood pressure. Then it's gonna fuck with us. But it says so seldom does it attack individuals of that race that Dr. Rush was disposed to regard the Negroes as black angels sent by a kind providence to nurse the sick during the terrible yellow fever which ravaged our northern cities for a number of years in succession about the close of the last century before blah blah. So notice here, he's saying that the so-called black folks, they wasn't succumbing to the yellow fever. We could get through it, kind of like COVID. And they're saying that, basically saying that we nursed their people since they were sick. And so it's like, how you admit that in a book where you talking all this shit about us? It's just crazy, real crazy. Let me get off of this one. And then now we're about to get into some of these videos. There's many other things in this book. I thought I had another thing highlighted that he was talking hella shit. That's basically like the type of races he tried to say that's here. Um, Whatever. If you go through the book is horrible. Either way, I read it. I probably skimmed through 10 to 15 pages maybe. So, so what I'm doing is painting a picture. So you have Justice Tani, right? You have Justice Tani. Justice Tani is a racist. Justice Tani loves to read racist literature. Justice Tani likes to do corrupt things in office for Andrew Jackson. Justice Tani was given his position as a Justice Tani, uh, chief, like a chief of the motherfucking tribe, Chief Justice Tani, through Andrew Jackson after he did some corrupt shit. Justice Tani is the one who accepted Sanford's plea of saying, hey, or defense of saying, hey, he was my African slave. Justice Tani is the one that said, let's go with that. Does Justice Tani seem like he's a trustable person? Nah, nah. In fact, the fact that his last name is Tawny, which means of a dark hue, and is usually spelled Tawney or Ny, uh, lets you wonder: was it a YT man that took his place, or was it originally a melanated man and he's been whitewashed so that way you don't really find who the real Justice Tani was? But okay, let's pull up these videos here. An old person has a heart attack. Oh yeah, I'm better read it already. We're gonna start with, let's see. We're gonna see what Dr. Umar was saying about it.
Overturned. They argued at the 14th Amendment that
Yeah, we're gonna see what Dr. Umar was saying. Not that Dr. Umar is somebody, whatever, but I want you to hear on the so-called black side of the argument, or not the side of the argument, the black talking points that are out there on our side.
gives everyone equal protection under the law, outlawed Dred Scott in principle, but it never did it in fact. So the Dred Scott case, 1857, I believe it was, Dred overturned. They argued at the 14th Amendment that gives everyone equal protection under the law, outlawed Dred Scott in principle, but it never did it in fact.
So I want you to notice on that, it is said, and I'm gonna smoke a little bit while we watch this. It is said that according to Umar, who's nobody, right? He ain't got no standing on anything. But according to him, the 14th Amendment didn't overturn the Dred Scott decision. And that's a major talking point out there. I'll say it didn't overturn it either because the case didn't have shit to do with slavery and slaves or whatsoever anyway. So yeah, he's right in a sense, but let him keep going.
So the Dred Scott case, 1857, I believe.
Yeah, G.O. living, get it in, G Code living.
It was Dred Scott was an enslaved African who was transported into a free state, if memory serves me correctly. And since he was in a free state, he sued for the right to be free. And Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger Taney ruled.
So first off, I want you to know that he did not sue to be free. Okay, the Dred Scott case, just real quick, he was only imprisoned for the space of 6 hours, as y'all can see right there. He was only in prison for the space of 6 hours. That's why he was suing the man. He had tried to kidnap him in a sense. Okay, so this whole thing about trading state lines and transferring shit, what they're trying to do is there was supposedly another case that happened years ago by somebody that between Dred Scott, somebody with the last name Emerson, this lady. I looked that up too. I don't really find anything conclusive with that shit, but that's basically they're kind of conflating two cases that ain't got shit to do with it. And so, and even Chief Justice Tani, he was referencing those cases, but that none of that information is in the plea. The plea with Dred Scott is, hey, this man basically tried to kidnap me and my family, held us for 6 hours, and I'm suing this nigga for $3,000 because I lost money from my motherfucking business, and he gonna have to pay. That's literally what the case is about. And then, so let's keep going.
Ruled that the black man has no rights. That was an enslaved African who was transported into a free state, if memory serves me correctly. And since he was in a free state, he sued for the right to be free. And Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger Taney ruled that the black man has no rights that a white man are bound to respect.
That's not what the ruling said. Let's pull up the ruling. Notice how much I gotta read. We're gonna have to really debunk because literally when we watch these videos, nobody's on the right talking point at all, on purpose, likely. But when we look at here, it says a free Negro of the African race whose ancestors were brought to this country and sold as slaves is not a citizen within the meaning of the Constitution of the United States. That's the ruling, okay? And then it kind of goes into a little explanation from that, but that's the ruling. That right there is what made them say, well, you can't sue this nice little white man for this money that tried to kidnap you. Notice the white T man got off. You're not able to sue him because hold on, y'all, my computer about to die. Thought it was plugged in. You're not able to sue him because um you are an African and you don't have access to the courts. It's literally that's it, literally that simple. They did that on purpose so that way they can throw his case out and he not be able to get money off this man that tried to imprison and kidnap him and his girl, him and his wife and children. Okay? So let's keep going.
You are not a U.S. citizen, nor could you ever be considered so. And I'm going to be honest with you. From the U.S. constitutional framework, Roger Taney's decision, although controversial and an absolute disgrace and disrespect to black folks, from a U.S. constitutional standpoint, from what those devils wrote in the Constitution, he was correct. Because what do we know about constitutional law? First of all, the Supreme Court only reviews what? Constitutional law cases. Y'all know that.
Yeah.
If you ever try to go to Supreme Court with a case that doesn't deal with constitutional law, they kick it back to the state.
Yeah, it's not up here.
According to constitutional law, any law ever created in America, any law that contradicts the intent of the founding fathers when they wrote the Constitution is automatically illegal. So the question you got to ask yourself, when Jefferson and Adams and Washington and
Boy, he sounds real good, don't he? He sounds really good. Too bad none of that shit had anything to do with the case. Excuse me. Reason why I'm saying that, we're gonna pull up another one, is because that's how people are convincing. People are very convincing. Hold on.
it's automatically illegal.
Okay, hold on. So yeah, people are very convincing. He's sitting here talking about, the state courts only the Supreme Courts only deal with the whatever law, I mean constitutional law, if not it's going to the state. So putting this kind of information out, and I've seen YT dudes do this too on a video. I wish I got the clip. I might try to find it. But I've seen them do it too. Like he called into C-SPAN. He was like, "Well, I haven't reviewed the case since my days back in law school. Blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, you trying to let everybody know you in law? You in law school? So you a lawyer? Make sure I listen to you. You're credible. Whoever this random guy is over the phone, right?" But he also didn't say the right shit about the case either. So I don't care how good you sound. When are you gonna talk about this case? Let this play.
So the question you got to ask yourself, when Jefferson and Adams and Washington and Franklin and Madison sat down and wrote that Constitution, did they ever intend for black people to be equal? I think everybody in this room knows that answer.
For black people to be equal, they were saying Africans. So that's the problem. And here's the problem too: grouping us up under one thing. An African may not be a goddamn citizen here, but an American Negro is a damn citizen here, and maybe a a European Moor or European Negro, maybe they ain't citizens, or maybe some of them are if they come whatever way or whatever, but they really shouldn't be. So that's the thing, grouping all these niggas in one thing on purpose, and now got people confused out here. Those who want to be confused. I'm gonna get past Umar. He ain't really saying too much more. Let me he pretty much goes on that same kind of tirade for a bit with the wrong information. Now let's watch
highly charged
let's watch
of slavery himself.
Let's watch an official source. Let's see what they say. Okay. Said Judge Greasy. Yeah.
itself once and for all, rather than see Congress, which had debated the issue carefully for decades, plan out a solution. In a controversial 7-2 decision, the court decided that African Americans were not citizens.
Now notice now it says African Americans were not citizens. How come y'all can't get this language right? How come y'all read the case and keep switching up that word? And y'all only switching up these words. Like slaves cannot be citizens. African Americans cannot be citizens. Nigga, no, nigga, that's not what it said. Okay? That's the thing I'm getting to, especially when you're dealing with law. This would be different if they were just telling me their opinion about some bullshit. But when we're dealing with the law, we're talking about direct wording of whatever the hell the law is, and that's gonna define what it is.
Therefore, they did not have the right to sue in court. Writing the decision for the court, Taney incorrectly
It's Tawny. Even he don't even know what the hell the name is, how to pronounce it.
and stubbornly claimed that the founders believed that African Americans had no rights which the white man was bound to respect.
It's that bullshit.
He ruled that Congress did not have the constitutional authority to ban slavery from the states.
So when is everybody I mean, he at least said that part that African American. He said African Americans are not citizens. Excuse me, and had no right to sue in court. but I mean, I guess that's kind of what he's kind of saying that, because some people were just saying the second part only. But let it keep going.
And therefore, the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional. Taney decided this despite Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, which reads, Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. Because of the Due Process Clause.
Okay, so whatever with that. But as you can see, they kind of switched up the wording on that particular part. Let's look at a clip of somebody else. This one right here.
Crisis. Dred Scott, who had been born enslaved, sued for his freedom, saying he had become free when he was brought to the North. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney ruled against Scott.
There's another person that pronounced it wrong. It's Taney.
Majority opinion stated the Constitution did not intend for African Americans to be citizens, and only citizens had the right to sue at that time. Additionally, the court determined that the Missouri Compromise was.
So basically, I think I just got that quick clip because I wanted you to see again. They done switched it up, saying African Americans. Nobody just going by African, because that would seem more right, because an African is not a naturalized citizen.
Infamous 18
in many cases, because they never did really rescind or renounce their citizenship or renounce their allegiance to their government that they were leaving. They were apparently just snatched off a boat and sent over to this bitch, and from that point put in the fields and whatever. So technically they never filled out naturalization paperwork. They never really went through that process. So technically I can see why saying in 1857, I can see why saying an African is not a citizen of the United States at that time.
57 Supreme Court case.
Many people sought to emancipate themselves by, fleeing across the river or the Underground Railroad in whatever facet that might have looked like emancipating themselves. But Dred Scott and many others pursued that through legal pursuits.
He did not sue nobody because he was a slave. It's like these people want to say that like you could just be a slave and just one day pop up and be like, you know what, fuck this, I'm suing. Like, does that make sense? You don't just hop up one day and be like, I'm about to sue to get out of this. Everybody be suing. What do you mean? Everybody's suing. Everybody's suing, right? That don't even make no sense, but that's what they want you to believe. Okay, let's keep going.
Cicely Hunter is a historian in St. Louis.
He went through several court cases, which ended up coming all the way up until the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, which ultimately.
You like, I ain't mad at her. All she doing is reading the Wikipedia article back to this lady. You know what I'm saying? She ain't done no studying, and that's the problem. Is it's not hard to find somebody to repeat propaganda. Let me tell you how it works. She does some kind of job for whatever, for either some for the state or whatever. However, they decided to pick her for this goddamn interview. And they told her, "Hey, we're gonna interview you about the Cheney decision or whatever." That night, she went and did about a couple of Google searches. Nigga, refreshed herself up on what the main talking points is, which is gonna be the first little bullshit, right? So that way she could be prepared to say the first little bullshit. So yeah, so what really happened? As if she really knew what the bitch. Not a shit of it. I just be saying it, but y'all know. But women, chick, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what the hell was going on. Quit lying, man. You ain't read. You ain't read the case. But it's not hard to get people to keep repeating the shit like a game of telephone.
He determined that his fate, along with his wife's and children's,
That's what I'm saying, Catnap, man. You would think that that's the first thing. Hey, man, can you tell me something about that case? Oh shit. Let me go read it real quick, and I'll inform you. Like, what's so hard about that? Why is there? But see, that's what people do. Like Afro Elite. Like, I gotta throw it out there, but like, it's like the nigga been on live streams forever going hard about this Dred. I've heard him say, I don't be listening to that much, but I've heard him mention Dred Scott a few times. The slavery decision, the Dred Scott birthright citizenship. And I'm sitting here like, boy. I just want to stop you. Cause it's like, how are you so passionate about something you never read? But think about it, y'all, man. There's a lot of people passionate about something they ain't never read fully, like the Bible, right? A lot of people passionate about religious kind of shit, and this shit is like a religious thing to these niggas, man. It's wild.
essentially they were not considered to be citizens, and therefore they could not be emancipated.
The Scott versus
You don't emancipate. Let's just make sure I ain't tripping, right? Which I'm pretty sure I'm not. To set free from control, past participle, put out of paternal authority. Declare free, give up one's authority over, and the freeing of a son or wife from the legal authority, to make her his or her own way in the world from whatever assimilated. Now you would almost want to say that you can stretch that to mean that, but we say that we emancipate minors, we emancipate children with people from a parental authority. Now, typically, a slave is supposed to be. It doesn't say anything about a slave, but if you was to take the part where it says set free from control, yeah, free, declare for someone free, mm, give up one's authority over. You can try to go there, but typically, you what you do with a slave is you manumit, set a slave or captive free. Okay, that's typically the word you want to use. The manumit. Notice the other one didn't say anything about a slave and setting people free. It said to be declare you're free. You know what I'm saying? But here it's saying to set you free. Wording is very, very important. What up, Rico Mills? What up, Geechee Dan? Pan Africanism equals doctrine and dogma, man. And some people hold on so hard to. You can't stop a nigga that's been wearing that red, green, and red, black nigga, and they been wearing the motherfucking what is that little motherfucking dashikis and shit and little hats and shit. And that nigga been doing that shit the past 15, 20 years. Y'all know them niggas. Y'all know them niggas that always got a little something red, green, and black on when you see him. Like he makes it a point. It might be a little red, black and green ring he got on the finger, or a little band or something. What up, get you Dan? Oh yeah, a little band or something. Those niggas are fully sold into the game, nigga. Fully sold. You're not gonna change them. They not giving up all this apparel they done bought, nigga. You're not gonna get them to do it, okay? He said, "Hey, not too much. I love my RGB colors." Hey man, rock them if you want to, man. But you ain't gonna. That's what I said. You ain't gonna get them to give it up, man. As long as you know who you are for real, and you can rock the colors. But man, yeah, now they got the flags and all in their car. That nigga done painted a flag on the back. You ain't finna get these niggas to change.
Sanford decision sparked outrage and drove the nation closer to civil war 4 years later. Lynn Jackson is the great-great-granddaughter of Dred and Harriet Scott and founder of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation. She began fundraising for the new headstone after seeing just how many people wanted to visit her ancestor's grave.
The other one was so low, it was difficult to find. And yet I also wanted to be sure that we had space to inscribe on it so that when people come really from all over the world to see his resting place, which is one of the top 3, if not the top, most requested grave sites at Calvary, there would be something to really see.
Scott's grave went unmarked.
Now I want y'all to notice that they said that earlier in it said that they were this decision drove the nation closer to civil war. I think that's another one of those talking points they're trying to drive in there, which it had nothing to do. Like, how does a man suing another white dude, suing a white dude for $9,000 um, for having him, kidnapped for 6 hours, and then you have a corrupt judge say that, hey, because this man claimed that you was an African slave, you can't have any access to the court. How is that going to drive the nation closer to civil war? That was my question for a moment. But what I ended up concluding is, like I told y'all in those newspaper clips, they were asking for people to make some type of resolution or legislation, I'm sorry, on this slavery thing. Remember in some of the first newspaper articles I was showing, they was kind of like this slavery case is now attracting so much attention. There's about this little star up here, or the other one, they like one of them ones that they was like, hey, we looking somewhere, wherever it is, that we need you to try to make a decision. Yeah, the remarkable fact that every attempt to legislate on the slave on slavery was not under the Constitution, but under the pretense of compact. So they was wanting, it's like they need something, right? They're like, we need some kind of decision on this slavery thing because we're gonna do something later. And then you think about how people said this motherfucker was made up, and some people said it was deliberately made up. One said it was dicta, which means it was just opinions from the court. The other one said, where it is, that it was deliberately made up. If y'all can remember, right there, was deliberately made up, the whole case. So you got all this corruption around this case, and they're trying to hurry up and get something out of it. And then they're like, hey, that made the Civil War happen. Well, what happens after this, after what I've realized is once you got a case, you've set precedent, right? 1857, you got this case adding in some kind of African language not being a citizen. 1860, slave codes of 1860. You got the slave codes of 1860 getting rewrote. I was like, 1860? Y'all just 5 years from damn near finishing the goddamn thing, so-called slavery. Why would you even be switching up the so-called laws at this point in time? And in here, if I can find it really quick, if not, uh it talks about African slaves, African specifically, admitting, if you admit that your people were from Africa. Let me see. And that's my thing with that. Like, why would they put that word admit in there? Why would they put the word admit? Let me see if I can find it. Right here. Let me switch this for a second. In African, admitting his ancestors to have been slaves is not a citizen to the United States. And it references the Dred Scott case. That's another thing that made me think about it because I was like, why would you be referencing the Dred Scott case? But now that you have legal precedents through some boo, what up, Chief EJ Smoker? Now that you have leave telling people straight to their face, right? Now that you, what's up, Nikki? Did I say what's up to you already? What's happening, Nikki? To be honest, I've seen Dr. Umar years ago getting into history. You seen Dr. Umar? Oh, when you first started getting into history, and everybody ends up running across his ass at some point in time in their life. My bad. He wanted them two people too too loud on the internet not to eventually come across his ass. And yeah, so you got this thing talking about foreigners and basically Africans not being able to be citizens. And what you end up getting after the 1860 slave code. So 1857, first case, sets president with the bullshit ass Dred Scott case. 1860, they rewrite the slave codes on some bullshit for whatever reason. Start putting in African language. 1866, all of the Indians signed new treaties under Albert Pike. All of them Masons at the time, the chiefs, the particular chiefs that signed and all that. But Albert Pike was the I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna just show at least one receipt without getting all the way into that, so we can stick on the topic. Pike. He was the attorneys for these tribes, and right here. Albert Pike, a reporter of the St. Louis Times, has recently interviewed General Albert Pike, who is at present attorney for the Choctaw Nation of Indians. And so, as attorney, he would know about cases and case law, right? He would know a famous case like the Dred Scott decision that's attracted so much attention, according to the newspapers, right? He probably was behind the people on the making up the damn case, right? He knew and they knew you needed some type of case to set precedents for any other kind of legal framework you're gonna use that's gonna exclude some African, because the legal reason is he's not a citizen. So what do? Take you out of the tribe. Well, these niggas over here in these tribes, these are some Africans. Yeah, they'll admit that their parents admit that their ancestors came from Africa. Just ask them. We've trained them long enough. You know what I'm saying? And you'll go around and admit it. Did your ancestors come from Africa? Yeah, that's what they told me. Okay. Well, yo, stupid little African ass ain't getting none of this money. We're gonna take your ass out the tribe. You freedmen, at least this happened to the freedmen. Those that stayed in their land, already had got converted into Negroes through census and stayed on their land. The ones that went up to Oklahoma, I don't want to say it like this. I was about to say, so some went up there thinking they was gonna get some whatever, right? Some good. Turned around and got fucked over. Some of my family members went up there and it wasn't their fault. They were prisoners of war. Like their parents was off or something happened or they were stolen or something. So not all Oklahoman Indians that went up there were horrible, but I can understand some people saying some of it might have been, whatever, not horrible, but um, some people will call them like sellouts or something, but nah, not really. So um, so we're about to jump back to this, but basically you think about why is the legislation of this Dred Scott decision, and they like people. This is the most requested grave site to see. Why is this the most requested? It's just a man suing a man. Have y'all read this? Has your children read the case? The offspring, I should say, descendants, I should say. Uh, what's propaganda is what's making this be the most important thing. Dred Scott should have got his money or not, even if he didn't. And he should not be talked about. It should have been a case where he lost his case on some bullshit, and you don't hear from Mel. It's not that important, but they wanted it to be. I'm just driving home the point. They wanted it to be important for these things. All the things that starts including Africans and cut you out there. All this corruption happens in this time frame. And I'm gonna say it like this too. You got Ellis Island that comes in the 1890s. All your Ellis Islanders, Chinese, all these folks, a few were here. Yeah, some of your Malays and stuff. I already seen or showed y'all how they was in some of the Indian schools, but um that was early 1800, like 1815, 19, but very few. But then the bulk of those people start coming in late 1800s. So you see the succession of white folks getting into the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia around mid 1700s. They come here, they start propagating the Bible across all that area and whatever, and they're using foreign-born Negroes from Europe that look like you and their kids being around you or whatever to influence you into these religions. Once y'all in there, they start moving that shit out west, building these mission schools, this, that, and the third, because they're trying to get rid of the Indians. They got to re-educate you first and let your elders die out as well. So as they're re-educating you through these mission schools and getting you into this religion, um, over time you start forgetting who you are. Well, in school, they start slowly tossing in little small things, probably like, well, this right here are the Indians, right, in the school book, and you as a 5-year-old, what the hell you gonna know, right? You as a 10-year-old, what the hell you gonna say? What the hell you gonna know? You gonna look at that and be like, oh yeah, Indian, right? And then you go home because we do it now. I mean, there's a lot of not we, but a lot of people do it now. They go home and they trying to correct their parents on what the school told them the shit was. Drinking some orange juice. But that's what they would be doing. Okay. What up, Cha Cha? He always said Cha Cha was a mine did for sure. They were denied their Mississippi Cha Cha status in Oklahoma. See, yeah. That Freeman shit and that Freeman shit fucked us up, calling us Africans. And really, it went down that we were just freedmen and slaves on paper, but just that paperwork alone caused the Seminoles to miss out on their settlement, and wasn't even in Oklahoma 5 years before the motherfucking slavery so called was up, and they still did them niggas that way. So it's really some bullshit. Let me pull up the next video.
Tawny wrote.
Now I think I did this because she said the name right.
After Tawny wrote the Dred Scott decision, he was saying that African Americans aren't worthy of full citizenship or even full personhood.
So yeah, here they go again with calling us African Americans, and that's not what he said. That's supposed to be the statue. They removed the statue. Appreciate that, Jimbo. What's happening with you? Yeah, they removed his statue. Much love. Appreciate that. They removed his statue. And I don't know how I feel about that. Because, you know, I mean, yeah, he was a racist ass piece of shit, but also he might be a whitewashed racist ass piece of shit. So I don't know. But either way, she said the name right, Tawny, and everybody else was saying Taney. And then she also still used the same damn talking point as the other folks did. Let me see what else I have on here.
Person held in free territory like the Wisconsin Territory, then you should be freed even in a slave state like Missouri. That 11-year odyssey took them all the way up to the Supreme Court, the one that ruled against Dred Scott in 1857. The ruling had three main parts. First, it said that blacks did not have rights in federal courts as federal citizens.
Now, notice how he worded it here. Blacks do not have rights in federal court. So we've seen African Americans, we've seen blacks, Nobody's just using the word African. Is basically what I want to get from this one. And that it just makes you wonder. Are they brainwashed? Simple mistake or purposeful propaganda? That's another thing to think. Let's see.
Almost destroyed the Union. Here's what happened. In 1846, Dred Scott, a slave, sued for his freedom. Scott had been born into slavery in Virginia, but during the 1830s, he traveled with his owner, John Emerson, an Army doctor, to Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory, both of which had banned slavery. When Emerson died in 1843, his widow, Irene Sanford, inherited Scott. In 1846, Scott sought to buy his freedom from Sanford, offering her $300. She refused.
So first thing I want you to take from this is this has nothing to do with the case at all. They're talking about a separate case in 1846. And second, none of this was in that plea. I pulled up those cases. It was real iffy. I didn't see him saying that he was a slave. And that's one thing. That's why I went by what the justice said. He said the plea doesn't show him to be a slave. So because and then I'm like, if he was a slave, then why would he be suing this man for kidnapping him, right? For 6 hours? And what is he doing being free at this point? Like, what they tried to say is that while he was suing him, he was still his slave. So think about this, y'all. And this ain't what they say. And I may not have that clip. You know what? I might find that video. But these niggas literally tried to say that this man was suing for his freedom for multiple years, from 1846 all the way up to 1857. And he stayed a slave the entire time as he sued him. And he was, so I said, so the slave master, and get this real quick, Scott also paid an attorney to do all this. I read the attorney's letters. So I was like, why would the slave master keep paying you when he don't have to pay you because you're his slave, if that's the case, especially when you're using the money to pay for an attorney to get your freedom? Now, does any of that make any sense? None of that shit makes fucking sense. And then you're going to sit here every day with me, still being the slave every day, faithfully. And then at the end, they say that, that's what I said. At the end, they say, hey, let me just let you free. But according to this, it was like, okay, Scott, they done threw in his so she was Emerson's. I don't even know where Irene Sanford came from. I forgot where she came from, because apparently she might have been she apparently was married to that last slave owner Emerson that they said he was under, which I seen some letters on that. I don't even know if that's really right or whatever, but regardless of that, they're trying to say Irene Sanford was Irene Emerson at the time, and she married somebody else after the dude died, inherited the property of that dude that passed, and she all of a sudden owned him, even though he was out living on his own. Apparently, that's kind of what they're saying. Let me keep it going.
Scott then turned to the legal system, filing a lawsuit against her in a St. Louis, Missouri court. He had a strong case. It was
like, it doesn't make sense that, okay, so if she's trying to get you back to be her slave, what are you doing? Why are you suing her? And this one, she didn't have him in the house. He had his own place. So it's a convoluted ass bullshit story they're coming up with. That's why I believe they said they made it up. Just like they said in the newspaper, these niggas made this shit up.
It's not uncommon for slaves to claim that once they entered a free state, they were free, and Missouri courts were sympathetic to these claims.
So basically, they're saying that
over the next 8 years, however, Scott endured a legal roller coaster. First losing his case, then winning.
So yeah, over 8 years.
Destroyed the Union.
Over 8 years, he dealt with it supposedly, and they just is like, hey,
The fundamental issue. Did blacks have the same?
I'm gonna let you see this one too. Hold up.
The fundamental issue. Did blacks have the same rights as whites?
Again, they talking about blacks. Nobody said the word African unless they threw it in with African American on 5 or 6 different fucking things I've showed you. So I can't be mad that some people have this kind of stance on the views on the case because that's what they see, right? This is a lot of propaganda from PBS, PragerU, whatever. Those from these some of it, the news earlier, some official ass sources. But that doesn't mean that you
Tawny,
can't. My bad. That doesn't mean that you can't take your time to listen to somebody when they say, "Hey, man, read the actual case and also read some of these newspaper clippings about the case." It's really not that hard. You know what I'm saying? Really not that hard. Let me see real quick if I can find the other case. Or not the other case, the other video. Oop, I don't know. I think it was a C-SPAN, Dred Scott decision. I might have to put C-SPAN. Here it is. Ooh.
For the court, I had to say.
Hold on. This was long. I need to go back through this to find the clips. I'm gonna try to just clip through a few of these. I mean, click on a few areas and see if we can get some of what I'm looking for. Hold on, let me pull it up. Screen share. All right. So let's see. Let me just start here.
On the question of citizenship, the legislation and histories of the times. There's a hint in qualifications for office like the president and there, right? So it's a great lesson in why people wait to bring freedom suits. Why? Because they're not a sure thing. They never are. But in this case, we have changing politics in the state of Missouri. One of the places that, if you're out on the road and in St. Louis, you can go visit to learn more about the history of the country at this time and the Dred Scott case. Well, I want to show you a timeline of Scott's legal challenge in the state of Missouri. First, 1846 was when it was filed at the St. Louis County Court, which is what we just saw. Retried in 1850 in the same courtroom. Then it went on to Missouri Supreme.
Hold on, y'all.
Claims number one that he is free. And second, that he's being falsely imprisoned. So there's an assault component where you claim that you're being threatened. All right. And then the second component is imprisonment, where you're.
So you at least read some of the case.
Basically being held against your will. And that was the typical format for these sorts of cases. It's the kind of case that, it was almost, boilerplate. And then you would go to court and you would plead out. Under the old writ system, which is a little bit different than the way we litigate today, but again, they're carrying on in some ways as if they are free, and so it's sort of a time of almost transition, not quite transition, because as Martha said earlier, the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 really is the point at which you see sectional tension begin to rise.
And you got to think, like, what is a fugitive slave act? Well, what is a fugitive? A fugitive is somebody who ran away. So if there are slave acts against fugitives who ran away, those acts don't apply to those who are living, who are not runaways, is what I'm kind of getting at. And that when I looked at the fugitive slave laws, That's kind of what I was looking at. I need to look more further. I need to look at the whole thing. I was kind of skimming through it because I was thinking that when I first started thinking about who was a slave and who wasn't. Then I started looking at certain runaway newspaper clippings, and I realized some of these runaways were apprentices. Some of these were people in contract or indentures. The indentures would say indentures, but some of these were being, something else. But then you would have slaves. Slaves would be, like I've been telling y'all, typically is going to be your criminals. So like, and then when I found laws that protected the criminals, like you're not supposed to beat them for certain stuff, you're not supposed to do a lot to your slave. Then I started realizing I knew that there were still laws that allowed you to be beaten stuff. That's when I started looking towards those laws. I was like, well, what kind of laws are there to, for that or whatever? And then that's the fugitive slave law. That's like, okay, if somebody's like, if you see a strange man walking down your street, and he can't produce sufficient paperwork that he's supposed to be free, you have the obligation to whip them 39 stripes on their back, on their bare back, according to it. In order to and to hold him or bring him down to the sheriff. Um, so these are things that you would do to whatever. So, but these are things that people scare you with. These are people be like, well, that they have them fugitive slave acts, that there was a slave laws, and it just kind of gets tossed around just like anything else. But at least he read some of the case. But I'm gonna go for it. Hold on.
Anti-slavery bar, the lawyers that were litigating these kinds of cases, they were non-ideological cases in many.
I'm trying to get to her. Hold on.
Scott's legal challenge in the state of Missouri. First, 1846 was when it was filed. The St. Louis, when we get to the Supreme Court, it's a contest, Marylander against Marylander.
Oh.
Decades of a precedent here, and at least for the descendant, we get right to the $64,000 question. The U.S. Constitution is nearly silent on the question of who is a citizen. There's a background and what he brought to this.
I'm just clicking around. I'm gonna click around a couple more times. I'm looking for something in particular. If I don't find it in a few more clicks, I'm gonna just go on to my next thing.
And what the makeup of the sport was like. But we're gonna start once again with the video. We went to Annapolis to learn.
It was a case decided in 1842. It involved basically the fugitive slave clause. There was a slave that escaped to Pennsylvania. David, but Montgomery Blair.
People throughout this period, and it's not unusual in a city like St. Louis, even absent the ongoing freedom suit, it's not unusual for enslaved people to be what was called hired out seasonally or for year-long contracts. Owners took advantage of enslaved people's labor in many ways, sometimes using them in their own households. But as you've heard, the Emersons have no direct need for the labor of the Scotts, but they look forward to or anticipate the income that's generated by their labor. One of the remarkable twists in this story is that the Scotts will labor and earn, some say, as much as $1,000 during the course of the litigation. That fund is held and finally turned over to the family when the Scotts receive their freedom.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Irene marries Calvin Chafee, and so now she's Miss Emerson, now Miss Chafee. She finally relents at the end of the litigation, having won, and is willing to transfer title to the Blow family, but only on the condition that she be given those proceeds, which I had read was in the range of about $750. But she did request the money, so that says something about.
I think they were in piastra, and so I don't know what the exact. It was 1,000 piastres.
Yeah, right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Steve Preet in Novi, Michigan. You're on the air. And Dred Scott provides him, it turns out, with his only opportunity in this critical period, not only to impact the jurisprudence, but in effect to have a role in the political questions that are.
Well, she was there. She's right there. So basically, and my bad, but I was trying to get to it. She's kind of pretty much right there. But basically, she was trying to say there's a part in there. She talks about him getting his freedom. She talked about $1,000 held and how that money went to whatever the hell. which makes no sense because that ain't got nothing to do with the case at all. I ain't never seen none of that within the case that I seen. Now, even if they're talking about some older case, that doesn't make sense either because they're talking about he passed away about a year after this, and so there was no other cases afterwards. So he didn't pay anything before, and if he would have paid something before to Emerson about $1,000, then on the cases prior to this one that he has with Sanford, then he wouldn't have. I know it's kind of confusing, but then he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have. Then Sanford wouldn't be able to argue the case that he was a slave as an African slave because somebody would have already got the goddamn money. So the money. I like when they were saying this shit. I was really the whole time wondering where the hell did they read this? Like I literally went searching everywhere I could search. That's when I went looking for those cases. I found some of those cases. I got some of the papers on those cases, and but I still wasn't reading what they said. This whole $1,000 thing and money going over to there. I don't know. I like some of their sources though be like some of these people read other books. This is one thing I will say. Some of these people read books from other people about these cases, and that's one thing I don't do. A lot of times I haven't read anything about Dred Scott that was wrote in the 1900s. There's tons of books written about Dred Scott from the 1900s. If I'm not mistaken, let me just see. But like my thing is, she may have read it through one of those books, but I'm not looking for that shit. I'm looking for primary sources. Now, not to get me wrong, maybe there's some new evidence in the 1950 book that wasn't presented anywhere else that maybe I just don't know about. Archive. I was like, what am I doing? Dred Scott in the archives, like on average, it's got 827 results. That ain't how many books, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of people have something to say about it. Everybody got something to say about it. Drowning out whatever the hell you might want to say about it. So don't get me wrong. I could go and I would in order to do this a little bit more thoroughly, I would go through some more modern books, skim through them to see if there's any primary sources. But I'm gonna tell you like this: if I was though like this, right? I haven't looked at this book, Slavery Law and the Dred Scott Case. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open that bitch like this. First, I can't borrow it. Let me try another one. The Dred Scott Decision, 1968, a book. Borrow. Okay, so if I was gonna look through this book for anything worth of anything, let me do this. Whoops. There we go. I'm gonna expand that bitch out, come through here, and look for sources. I don't want to see no bullshit ass random. I don't want to see no bullshit like this. What the fuck that got to do with me, right? What the fuck that got to do with anything, right? Goddamn nigga made a goddamn comic book in this bitch. Now there's a newspaper clipping. All right, let me see. Is this a source? Okay. Run away from the subscriber. We're talking about the Dred Scott on the man, a Negro Man Levy. He was more than 6 feet. Man Levy don't sound like Dred Scott. Okay, so why is this in here? He was a little more than 6 feet high, slightly brown. I mean, slightly lame. I'm sorry. 175-pound heavy, 401 hiring out to slave above law, force $10, blah blah blah. Found in the ladies' dressing rooms, lost a levy last night. So yeah, so why is that in here? What's the context behind throwing a random runaway advertisement illustrated with the figure of a runaway Negro appeared frequently in newspapers? The owner of this slave warns anyone who might help the blah 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 blah. What's they got to do with the case? What does they got to do with the Dred Scott case? A random ass motherfucking runaway motherfucking what the fuck? This is why I say I don't give a fuck about what these niggas wrote. in these dumbass books. What is this? Am I reading about the Dred Scott decision? Charleston extra passed this December to dissolve the Union State of South Carolina and the states under the compact entitled the Constitution of the America. The ordinance. What is it? What the hell is this? Southern secessionists warned during the 1860 presidential campaign that the election of the black Republican would force the South to secede. What does this got to do with the Dred? The book is literally called The Dred Scott Decision. Okay. The fuck this got to do with the Dred Scott? And I'm at the end of the book. Do you think I'm gonna read that bitch or anything in there? This is why I don't read nothing from modern times. What the fuck is this? This is what is this? On December 1859, 2 years after the case, John Brown, who was not any, I don't know of a John Brown, that ain't got nothing to do with the case, who was hanged in Charlestown, Virginia, after his capture while leading a rapid whatever his raid on Harper's Ferry. His expedition convinced me. What does this got to do with this? What does this got to do with the Dred Scott decision? The book is literally titled "The Dred Scott Decision." The cover of the book. What the cover of the book look like? So I'm not tripping. Hell, I can't even get back to it. It's so whack. Yeah. Slavery in the Supreme Court's self-identified, self-inflicted wound, and you got Scott and Tani on that bitch. What is all this other stuff? You know what I'm saying? If you read these kind of books and you're spitting any kind of thing out of these books, I don't know what to tell you. I found stuff in the newspapers from other justices. I found stuff in the newspapers from other people's decision on what they saw at the time with the case when they were there. That's primary. All this other shit, man, it's just propaganda to drown out the realness of the whole situation. It's crazy. He said, did you catch the Black Republican? Nah, I haven't heard of that. So I'm jumping loud. You good? I'm about to probably get off of here anyway. My eyes and I'm pretty much toward the end on that. That's pretty much what I wanted to show y'all as we go back, just to kind of quickly get a little overview. So what did we see in the newspapers? We saw that Dred Scott was not a slave. According to a justice, the plea didn't even show him to be a slave. Well, you know what? I haven't read the actual case yet, but I'll read this part, and it pretty much I don't need to read all the pages. But it says right here that basically Dred Scott is suing him, Mr. Sanford, because he had with force of arms assaulted the plaintiff, and without law or right held him as a slave and imprisoned him for the space of 6 hours, which nobody ever really mentioned that. Old boy says that he was suing him for manhandling him, blah blah blah, this and that. But you never said the whole 6 hours of being held as a slave. Because why would I sue a man for my freedom for holding me as a slave for 6 hours if I'm always his slave already? Does that make any sense? Yeah, he had me enslaved, kidnapped in the room, but I was already his slave. So yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. So it's those things that I be looking for. Like, I pay attention to all the wording, all these fools that basically are trying to talk around what the case actually says, and talking around it erases the reality of what happened, which is why, for those who missed it earlier, it's no different from what I'm finding now. Like how they're erasing the history on how they were bringing in other people as Native Americans in here. And now we have the proof 100%. I got newspapers like this right. Let me go to the other one first. This one. Yeah. So we're talking about the foreign mission schools, which is foreign here, not foreign outside of the colonies, going towards Indian territory, which would be foreign. And it says the interesting seminary appears to be in the right. So first, let me just prove to you real quick that a foreign mission school has normal American Indians. Now you see right here, American Aborigines right there. But I'm gonna show you here. No, that's that other one. Hold up. So many newspapers. Here we go. Foreign Mission School, same title, right? 4 Indian youths, Choctaw, 3 Cherokee, and they're talking about going through getting their education, blah blah blah. But this is a school that has Choctaw and Cherokee in it, foreign mission school, right? So now we go back here, and we're gonna look at it again, and this is a foreign mission school. It says interesting seminary appears to be rising in favor of God means the present number of pupils is 20. There's 20 children here. 6 are from the Sandwich Islands. The Sandwich Islands is Hawaii. 2 are from the Society Islands. Some other islands south of Hawaii. 1 is from Timor, a Chinese language. You have a Chinese man, and the island of Timor is like to the west or to the east, depending, yeah, to the east of the Philippines. Uh, 1 from Bengal, so you got a Bengali, Bangladesh, and you have a Malaysian here, as well as 6 Aborigine students. So here's an example where you got multiple different types of students at a mission school for Indians in 1819. And on top of that, another one here, if that ain't enough, here's another one talking about the foreign mission schools right here in the high yellow, whatever, foreign mission schools about to be established in Connecticut and for the instruction of heathen youths of all nations. Now, this one tells it all. It says, who may be cast on shores. Who gets casted on shores? Immigrants, such as the Owahis or the Hawaiians, the Chinese, and the Lascars. Somebody said what that was before. I forgot what it is, but some kind of foreign thing over there, Asia, as well as American Indians, as well as the American Indians. Notice how they separated that. The people who were cast on the shore, which are immigrants, are now in the schools with the American Indians. Which schools were doing it? Princeton, Philadelphia. When we looked up, was Princeton involved in that shit? Yes. According to Princeton, slavery, Princeton EDU, Indian slavery in Princeton. They have a whole article about it, but they don't talk about bringing in these folks. We can now talk about that. We now have the proof of that, but they do talk about having a school. So that's all I need for the connection. Same thing with Philadelphia. So I forgot how I even got on this topic, but we go into that because, yeah, well, around this 1800 time frame when this whole thing is going down with Dred Scott and the whole thing and the whole nine, it's a whole lot of corruption. This is where I've been telling people, like, a lot of your major corruption happened in the 1800s. 1700s really ain't, is really not bad, especially for those of us in the South and like in the Louisiana territory outside of the 13 colonies and Florida territory. Like basically most of America. Like for the most part, everything was mostly not that much going on as far as white T folks getting places 18 until 18 after 1803. So a lot of your corruption happens in that time frame, the switching up of the laws, the treaties, adding the African language, bringing in the other people, making them the real Indians over you, and erasing you out fully at some point, you know what I'm saying, to just being black Negroes that are the same as any other African. And that's why I can't stand on anything that's attached to that like that. I'm cool with certain things, but yeah, that's where I'm gonna have to leave it, y'all, man. I appreciate y'all for being in here tonight. And I'm gonna get back to reading some shit before I fall asleep and come back with some more game, man. Appreciate it, y'all. Have a good night.